I'd like to stay on this topic of shifting mindset. There might be a lot of educated Canadians in this room who are familiar with what climate change is going to mean to them personally, to their communities, to the country. But there are many Canadians who don't really understand what it means. So Don, where do you think we need to begin? What should be done to try and foster greater understanding?
It's a great question, and I think it lies at the very heart of how we solve this problem collectively. And one of the Bobs mentioned how awareness increased after the floods in Houston and the hurricanes in the Caribbean. But we forgot about Houston real fast as soon as the hurricane hit Florida. And I think there's a message in there that our memories are short and our motivations are as short as our memories. Partners for Action, which is an insurance industry organization out of one of the universities in Ontario, did a poll recently. And only 6% of Canadians who live in a flood zone identify that they lived in a flood zone. So they weren't aware that they lived in a flood zone. 20 or 21% of them felt that the likelihood of flooding would increase over the next 25 years. Awareness is incredibly low when it comes to the risks that we face as Canadians. The National Roundtable that I mentioned in November with Minister Goodale and stakeholders from across the country, the number one takeaway has been on the need to raise the awareness around risk that we as Canadians face. Because without raising the awareness around risk, you cannot motivate consumers to action. You cannot convince consumers as to why governments are making these types of investments if a consumer is not aware of that, because consumers may feel that this is the kind of investment that I need because this is what I'm worried about. They ought to be worried about these things. Businesses, while we're seeing an improvement, are not making those investments and those assessments because they're not aware of the long-term implications of these risks. So there's a lot more that needs to be done. We're encouraged on the narrow issue of flood, as big an issue as it is, that working in partnership with the government and with other organizations like Partners for Action and many others, that we can raise that level of awareness, and with awareness, we believe, comes action.